All right. It appears that we're live, folks. I'm going to just have to kind of take technology at its word, which is nice. So, for everybody who is typically joining us on the replay, I'm going to cut right to it. Today, what we're going to be talking about is something that is super pervasive, not just because of now, but because of kind of always. And we're going to deep dive into imposter syndrome and also how to use the kind of techniques that I've been talking about in various nonprofit kind of situations and stuff like that. So even if you're a nonprofit, you're definitely going to want to watch this because I think that there's a lot of good that you're going to be able to take away, a lot of actionable steps, I hope, that will work out. So today, our guest, or victim, shall we call him, is Michelle. And if you were on the webinar last night, we kind of had some fun with this. And I'm not going to be great at an intro. So would you mind telling folks who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Michelle Bangen, and I am a violence prevention and health promotion specialist. And a colleague of mine and I very recently just started an agency called Insight Agency for Change, where we are really trying to solve some of society's most vexing issues, like suicide prevention, and sexual violence prevention and substance abuse prevention. So we're just kind of getting going. As I've been telling you, Johnny, we just registered our LLC in February. So we are like legit babies. We're brand new.
Absolutely. I totally get it. There's so I kind of want to, the reason I wanted to talk about this today and the reason why I think it's going to be such a big deal for so many people is because imposter syndrome is that voice in people's heads, everybody's head, your head, my head, we all get it. And what it is that thing that's saying that, who am I to say I'm not good enough? That sort of stuff. It's all those reasons that we throw kind of into our own path to that prevent us from getting our story out, from telling. There's a lot of different ways to say it, telling our story, telling your truth, all those different kinds of things. And the reality is, and I think one of the positive outcomes of this delightful COVID crisis is that it's really going to show how important your story, your skill sets, all those kinds of things are, like how absolutely vital and life-changing it can be. And this is not just, because of your background, and like I'm sort of, speaking through the camera to the human race. Also, there you go, my best used car salesman voice. But it's this is one of those situations where if you have something that you can share, especially in a way that, like, if somebody else is going through that, they can hear that story, they can identify with it, and it can kind of give them the bare minimum human connection. That's huge already, because we're all, what if they're an extrovert? They haven't been outside in 2 weeks. I mean, that's awful, that kind of thing. But also, if you have information that can like truly transform a life, which I believe you do, and that was kind of the crux. So should we talk a little bit about that email exchange that led to you sitting here right now? Which is fine. Like, I'm pleased. I mean, and tell it the way that you tell it. I think it's important.
No, so I was originally drawn to your webinar that you had last night, which was the first thing I did when I saw you. As I signed up for that webinar, scaling your business ethically in this crazy, post-COVID world.
Right.
And
we're not post yet. Soon, we're all hoping.
I know. We're probably actually quite a ways from it, but that's my optimism that I very rarely let shine. So anyways, I was really excited to see kind of how you were encouraging people to shift and think a little bit differently right now. And then when you were asking for folks, kind of tell you a little bit about what their business has been going through, I was excited to do that, thinking this would be a great learning opportunity for me to hear all the different ways that other people are thinking about pivoting their business and thinking about how to move forward. And I didn't necessarily really think that I would be ready to talk about kind of where we are, but we've worked really hard at what we've got. And to your point and what you kind of said, like it is important that what we what we do, what we offer doesn't stop, especially right now. And so just kind of putting on my big girl pants, and here I am this morning to
Right.
talk about it.
Totally. And yeah, I kind of want to, you brought up something I think is really important, is the sensation, really, because that's what it is this sensation that we all want to feel comfortable that we are somehow ready.
Right.
And, as you saw last night, obviously, I'm a big fan of using analogies, especially with that delightful little video clip that I play. And not to once again coin another military sort of thing, but you don't go to war with what you need. You go to war with what you have.
Mhm.
And in this particular context, you don't get to, your message. When I got your email about, oh wow, when you saw what it was that we were going to do, and you were like, oh, hold on a second. Well, hold up. I might have not quite thought this through. And when you said, well, the website's not up and this thing, and we just did this, and my response was like, no one cares, kind of thing, because that it's super true. And this is something, I know I'm kind of being fun here, but the reality for everybody is that it doesn't matter about your website. It doesn't matter if your logo isn't pretty. It doesn't matter even if you're incorporated or if you have the business bank account. Like, those are the traipsings of business and that kind of thing. And when it comes to a situation where, and this is obviously with you doing things like, violence and suicide prevention and sexual abuse, and like just the amazing amount of good that can come out of, someone like yourself recognizing that fact and just saying, you know what, we're doing this anyway. And then what happens when you, instead of focusing on the things that you don't have, focus on what is available to you, and I think that the big pivot point, and correct me if I'm wrong, was sort of a moment where I think you realized that, oh wait, it's not about having the website, it's about the message. That's the key focus. Am I kind of close there?
Yeah, I think so. I think as somebody who is a perfectionist, and my partner and I work so well together, and we're both really driven and have like all the big ideas. It's actually kind of crazy what we've been able to accomplish in like the couple months we've been together, but it feels overwhelming. Wanting to get like everything has to be done first is what it feels like. That's what it felt like getting the LLC going. And then once we submitted that paperwork, it's like, okay, now we got to do the real work, and everything needs to be done first. So it kind of, I appreciated your message about, keeping it simple, and maybe needing to pare down and think about, okay, what really needs to be done now, and what can be done now before everything exists, because everything doesn't exist right now.
Right, because there's a bit, I'm not sure if everyone's noticed, but there's been a bit of a monkey wrench thrown into things.
A little bit.
Right. So, it's like, all right, well, we have to, and like we talked about last night on the webinar, yes, of course, there's a problem. We need to acknowledge that. There is a completely different set of circumstances that probably anyone in our generation, I'm not that much older than you, I don't think, I'm only 97. I have an amazing surgeon, by the way. I can refer. It's great. But this is one of those situations where there's so much crazy going on, but you don't want to focus on that, which is why I typically recommend people just don't watch the news. Get a little snippet of it here and there and whatever you need. But it's like the minute you feel yourself sort of cascading down a rabbit hole, you're like, no, absolutely, like, stop it. This is one of those things where, and I don't want to downplay what's going on in the world, but at the same time, the reality is, especially for folks such as yourself and for people who are influencers and authors, speakers, consultants, whatever situation folks are in, nonprofits, you need to focus instead on, okay, I get it, I'm over here, but let's look now at the solution. Let's really focus on what this solution could be. And so what I want to do in this is kind of break down the vision of your business. Like, what was your go-to market strategy? Because you had a very, very specific one, it looks like. And what I really like is how you were talking about how you and your partner were able to, in a very rapid, time frame, accomplish quite a bit. That then I get it. Like, also, it feels like it was all detonated, and you're like, I totally understand where you're coming from. I empathize. But what I want to do is then like, let's look at where you were going. And let's see how we can kind of pull that around and develop something that's going to get you to that end result much faster. Go. Talk about your model a little bit and what was happening.
Yeah. So the first thing that my partner and I were kind of going to market with is she and I are both trained in a particular suicide prevention program. And our region and our state has really been building capacity around this particular program for about a year now. And so she and I hit it off really well when we got trained about a year ago together, and have trained together a few times, and really just felt like we could run a business around sort of being able to provide training locally, regionally, and certainly we'd be willing to go further than that, but we really just wanted to kind of start here at home with our communities because we know them. We know what some of the needs are, and we have some partnerships here locally. And that's sort of a big part of it for us, is like, we don't think that this work can be done in a silo or alone. And so building those partnerships and relationships is really key for us doing our jobs well. And so that's been sort of a big piece of like all these things that we were intending to go to and network with people and work with people and collaborate with folks and, think about how to creatively address some of these issues have sort of been put on hold. And all those trainings that we were hoping to do, they just disappeared in a matter. I mean, they're 30-person trainings, typically 2 full days. Like, you're for sure breathing on each other. Like, there's
legit.
You're sharing markers. You're like, yeah, you're getting together. I know, right?
How dare you?
So that was sort of our original plan, was we would be sort of approaching agencies who are wanting to train their staff in suicide prevention techniques, and gatekeeper techniques. We were wanting to be sort of partnering with different community groups. There are lots of folks that can and should have some of these skills that basically anybody can be a bystander or a gatekeeper. And so really trying to promote open community trainings in addition to agency-specific trainings was really our plan originally, or at least phase 1. So phase 1 is no longer phase 1, and we're having to think about what were the other parts of the plan and maybe reprioritizing how we roll those out.
Totally. Cool. All right. So for anyone just joining us right now, we are talking about Michelle and her particular situation does suicide prevention, which is kind of a big deal, because if you think about why people typically do that, a lot of things, say like violent life upheaval would be sort of a broad stroke version of that, financial calamity, sort of thing. So, wait, yeah, everything that's happening right now, it's kind of a big deal to be able to get this message out. And if I'm hearing you correctly on this, it sounds like sort of phase 1 was to use these live events to network, to sort of, I guess you could say, influence the influencers. Was that really what you were thinking?
A little bit. Do some trainings at conferences, presenting with partners to kind of get out in front of folks. But then also just sort of meeting the folks that are coordinating efforts in the state. Right.
All right. So I'll get to that in a second, but let's also talk about the kind of training. Now you have, what was this? Like, you in a room with a clicker on a big screen and people with handouts? Like, describe what that was going to be like.
What the actual training itself is. So the main program that we were trying to promote, granted our backgrounds are so varied, we can do a lot of different things, but the one that we were starting with is called Assist, and it's a nationally well-known evidence-based program that's 2 full days. It's really like, yes, there are some clicker parts, but there are a lot of discussion, a lot of opportunity for people to kind of talk about their connection with sort of needing to be there, and then getting skills, getting to practice. So it's a lot of like sitting in a circle facing each other, talking through different scenarios and, well, how would you approach that? Or actually getting to practice, little vignettes.
Gotcha. All right. So with that particular thing, I mean, honestly, Zoom is going to do all of that.
We can't. So
How
that's
come?
the other, we can't.
So are there like regulations on this?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
now we're getting into it.
Which are really smart because, I mean, the key is we need to be able to create a space that everybody is safe and comfortable in. And it's actually part of the program. We even ask people when they leave to go to the bathroom, if it's not at a like scheduled break time, to give us a thumbs up so that we don't feel like I need to go follow that person and make sure they feel safe. It's a really, really big deal. It can be super challenging if you've gone through something recently that this is hitting you hard at that moment.
Okay. That was my next question. So it sounds like this is something where you would be working with people themselves who are at risk.
Could be, potentially. The audiences are totally mixed. And I mean, if you want to think about it realistically, just given the numbers of suicide rates in our country, like everybody knows somebody. Everybody's got a connection, whether they know it or not, of folks who struggle with that. So, so being able to create that safety, you can't really do that in the same way via Zoom.
I understand. Okay, now I see where some of the confusion was happening. So correct me if I'm wrong on this. So I was reading the way you were that you work with people who work with at-risk people, right? So you work with the workers.
Yep, and
that's one audience, right? Right there.
Yes.
All right. So we have work with workers.
Yes.
And then you have a second audience.
Yes.
Where you are, in fact, the worker working with the people at risk.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So that is a big deal. So this is a very common problem with basically all of business, is when you say, who's your audience? And they're like, oh, well, everybody can benefit from this. It's like, maybe, but here's the problem with the internet, is if you're not speaking to one, you're speaking to none. And so I'm not saying to exclude anybody at all. What I'm saying is there's a formula to this that is going to better set you up for success. Are you ready? It's an amazing secret.
I am ready.
Stabilize,
drop it,
optimize, expand. That's it. And stabilize, optimize, expand. Everybody wants to live in the sexy part of the expand, because that's where the fun is. It's like, oh, we could do this, we could do this, here's an idea, we can do this, we can do this. No, if you don't have stabilize and optimize first, and you try to expand too hard, it will crumble under its own lack of infrastructure. Does that make sense? 100%. So that's why I'm saying, okay, if you want to do this, one question you might want to consider asking yourself is which audience is going to help us do the most good, And so unfortunately, if there are regulations on delivering that specific program, then you might need to flush the program because it might not work in this environment. However, who's to say you can't create your own, that you can't go out and create your own messaging for these kinds of things? And furthermore, it might make sense to not be specifically speaking directly to those at risk, but helping the world recognize others who might be at risk.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Make sure that everybody can recognize if somebody is struggling and have a couple of skills to be able to get them help without freaking out that they're talking about suicide.
All right there. I think that's going to be that might be your COVID message right there.
Okay.
So, how to recognize. And so if you remember last night, we were talking about how to enter the conversation in the prospect's mind kind of thing. This right here, recognizing people who are struggling with it, this will cost you like nothing to get out there. And the piece and the problem is nobody's really talking about it right now. There's a lot because everybody's sort of like wrapped up in the largeness of the problem. And I think it was mentioned offhandedly in, like a press conference or something like that, but talking about how the financial fallout of this might be more deadly than the actual disease. That's your hook to get into, say, mainstream media, to get into podcasts, because this is the kind of thing that affects everybody. And so here's what I want you to think about doing is you're going to be able to work with the workers and they can reach out and stuff like that and they can identify themselves. But I think the broader conversation, because everyone's, in these like little micropods essentially of we're at home all day, woohoo, like, okay, let's recognize if someone's struggling, like what are those symptoms, what to look out for, and then potential action steps that they might want to take. And what I strongly recommend doing this is to start building an audience based around that, of the awareness of this. And this is, I know I just said, if you're not speaking to one, you're speaking to none, but you can't, this is one of the weird moments where this conversation is speaking to one, so the path through this is going to be, and I want you to focus on the audience that we talked about last night. All right. It's going to be, you want to be creating, what are the micro conversations? What are those entry points? If you like, for example, you can talk to entrepreneurs about this because that's a very high suicide rate kind of thing, or just high depression in general, because of what's already with isolation, which is why I probably thrive in this environment, because I haven't left my house in 50 years. It's like, okay. But you could go, say, for example, you wanted to go to speak to this with a bunch of people on big name podcasts. Your media pitch would be entrepreneurs and suicide in the COVID crisis. What to look out for. You could go literally to every, I'm not sure if there's a different name for them, but like every mommy blogger out there, they basically run the earth and talk about this, and I mean, this requires zero infrastructure. To build your list, get leadpages.net.
Okay.
That is going to be the tool that you use right now, because it's all about minimum viable product. The only thing that you need are the social media properties branded to your brand and a landing page with a thank you page afterwards. You're going to build your email list and you're going to build your social media following, and you're going to build that invisible list that we talked about last night. All right. So those are the tools. You literally, by the end of this afternoon, can have everything you need completely set up. Boom, done. Like it's like this is like me. We did, absolutely. Woohoo! No, not yet. We're getting to that. It'll take me 3 minutes to get there too. Oh, this is gonna be a great call. I love it. No, I'm saying, so you have your tools. Those are the tools that you're gonna need. Now, what you really need to do is have your go-to messaging. And so, who are you? Who's your partner? How is it? What do you do? What are your backgrounds? Get all your street cred kind of up there talking about this stuff. And then, what are the conversations? What are those micro conversations that you need to be having? So, who are the markets that you want to speak to?
You're asking me that right now?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a fifth, so like I haven't thought about any of those things you just said until you just said them. Just, I don't know if you see my eyes floating around. It's like, that's how I think, as I process.
No, that's fine.
Looking around. I don't know. I think you've raised a really interesting point about entrepreneurs being an audience, and I had not thought of that at all. Something that was floating around in my mind as you were talking about that was a challenge that we're seeing is folks who are working with at-risk populations are still having to do that, but that looks totally different now. And so maybe trying to figure out, they're still trying to figure out what that looks like. How do they support people? But maybe once they figure out how they support people, we can try to adjust, okay, in this new way of supporting folks, what does it look like to be able to recognize signs of thoughts of suicide or other challenges that you could recognize and refer, kind of thing.
Right. All right. Hang on a second here. So industry professionals are going to be one group of folks for this particular conversation. And I think that you might be able to call them out inside of any kind of interview by and large, and to say, listen, if you're an industry professional Obviously, there are a lot of state and local and federal regulations around this stuff, which are totally not applicable right now. As a cohesive group, we need to get together and figure out what we can do under these circumstances to continue to be effective. Go to veryeasytosay.com, sign up. We're going to be creating a Facebook group, and where you and your partner become sort of you essentially create an association for this kind of thing, where you're going to be able to look at, and I mean, the position that you're going to put yourself into, not to sort of be greedy, I guess you could say, but if you do this and you do this consistently and you do this at a very high level and you do it a lot, you're going to end up being the hub of, and this isn't, I'm not going to call it a market because that would just be awful. But it's like of this problem, you know what I mean? Like to be able to be this sort of this hub of information where it can be spread, throughout everything, where it's like now you're the ones holding the conferences. You know what I mean? And this can be done very quickly. Is this kind of making sense?
It is. I think my biggest hesitation with it is some of those organizations, professional organizations and otherwise, they already exist and they're putting out really good content. And I think where my partner and I are coming in is we want to be able to support that work. I don't think we ever intended to own it. That's maybe where some of the imposter syndrome comes in a little bit. We've been doing
I see where the hang up is. Hang on a second. Yeah, that's not the message that I'm giving you. These you're not taking anything from anyone. No. What you're doing is you're going to be working directly with these people.
Right.
But you're probably going to be doing it in a vastly more effective way. So what that does is it puts you on the same footing with these folks. So this is one of those things where if you want to be able to be, if you want to have the most positive impact on the planet that you possibly can, this is the recipe for that. You're not going to like swallow up a bunch of organizations or anything.
Right.
That's not how it works, but what you will be doing is using the tools that you have right now, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. Absolutely. All these, get your dance moves going because it's going to be awesome.
My 9-year-old is going to have to teach me the world because she spends all the time on TikTok.
Yeah, but there are tons and tons and tons of people on TikTok who are, who are trying to get this message out, kind of thing. And this is just one of those things where you need to focus on building an audience. The larger and more engaged audience you have, the more of a positive impact that you're going to have when you do something.
Yes.
But you don't have one right now.
Right.
So you're like,
not at all. Like this many. Like I told you in the email, like we're not even really Facebook official because we wanted to have, a website and social media places to actually point people to when we really put ourselves out there. So pretty much everything that we've been doing so far is with networking contacts with people who we know or who we need to know, and not really doing it sort of online in the ether at all yet.
Yeah. So set up social.
Yeah.
That is like what, a 60-minute problem?
I don't know, probably.
Yeah. It's all free. It's not like you need some sort of tech team to get out there and do this. It's like, okay, go get your Twitter handle, go get your TikTok, put your email out there. You already have a holding thing on your website. Yeah, we do. Are you using WordPress?
We aren't. We're using Wix.
Get out of that.
No.
Yes.
We love it.
It's terrible. I don't care. Here's why I don't care. Is because you are going to be so completely hamstrung by trying, if you ever want to like do anything that's actually effective. The reason you want to do WordPress is because pretty much 65% of the web, it's free, first of all. But also roughly 65% of the internet runs on this stuff. There are tons of free templates out there. The lead pages thing that I mentioned has a plugin that will literally turn your site into that site that you need to do this, like with a click kind of thing. It's super important. Like, I mean, this is 15 plus years of doing this, talking to you right now. Like, I've built ecosystems from the ground up in minutes because of these tools. Like if you want to reduce time, get your message out there, save lives now, don't use that. Don't use that. You will regret it. I see your face. I know what that means. Very stubborn individual, aren't you? That's fine. If you don't, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's just I'm trying to set you up for rapid success.
Right. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Which is fine, but you can go and fall on your face and learn the hard way. That's cool too.
And then come back and say, you were right, Johnny.
But yeah, I'm used to it. It's total. Don't worry. Like you said last night, I got a thick skin. So that's cool. That's fine. All right. Don't make that change. But get your social set up today, this afternoon, be done with it.
Yeah.
And then what you want to do is create a landing page that's going to build that subscriber base. All right. So page 1 is going to be just a landing page. Let's get your name, your email address. And then when it says thank you, send them to like a Facebook group.
Yeah.
You know, where you're going to be able to, and you want to sort of differentiate between like the regular humans out there who maybe are just, you know, family members that are kind of like, well, you know, this person was seemed to fall into this. And then you want to have industry professionals in a different one. Okay. So set up one group for the families, another group for the industry professionals.
Yeah.
And then here you go. This is the big one. Make a list of the verticals, the industries, the marketplaces, whatever language you want to use on this. So, you know, business owners, entrepreneurs, talk to personal development and that kind of stuff. You want to be talking to family. So basically go through and look at, okay, what are all of these things? Because if you want to be as relevant as humanly possible with your message, you have to be aware of who you're going to be speaking to and what their audience is listening to.
Yeah.
And so, for example, in like, family should be pretty straightforward, right? But with the entrepreneur thing, you're going to want to talk about sort of the bravado that comes with that and say like, hiding under the dark, mogul exterior lies the heart of a child or whatever kind of weirdness. Like you say it way better than I do. I mean, you're a trained professional, but I think you understand what I'm saying is you want to enter that conversation in the marketplace. And the same thing, like I want you to bullet these out, make a list, podcasts, YouTube channels, freaking TikTokers, go find them, that kind of thing, get all that stuff. Radio, TV, print media, magazines, bloggers. And you want to have these things like, okay, here's your, say like home and garden or family, whatever it is kind of thing. And you want to just make a list of all these people. Like, what is it? What are they talking about? Who are they talking to? What is their contact information? Mm-hmm. And then I want you every day hitting up 400 with a media pitch.
Okay.
Go, if you don't want to do it, which I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But this is the goal. Remember, we have a limited window of time where the world's going to be in an absolute catastrophe, right? So we have to get in there and do it. So that 400 a day. And what'll happen is within about 2 weeks, you will be on the phone and doing this on a basically perpetual level, because this is what's going to happen is the momentum that you build now doing this is going to carry over to the rest of your life. Is this making sense?
It is.
These are the actions that, like, the minimal infrastructure that you need, but the things that are going to matter the most. Who are you talking to? What is the message? And the fact that you reach out every single day.
Yeah.
That's what you build, that momentum.
Yeah. It feels really, really big. Even though it's simple, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah. So that feels really a little bit, like I said, I don't know 400 people, let
Who
alone
cares?
Every single day.
Well, here, and let me ask you a question. Like, why is you knowing 400 people in a day important?
No, it just seems like a lot.
You want to know what's that?
And I'm an extrovert.
Good. This will become very easy for you very quickly. This is why, this is what I'm talking about with like sort of the whole imposter syndrome kind of thing. This is another piece of it, is that I can see it in your face that there's like tons of hesitation. You know, like this is sounding uncomfortable, but if you want to change, like if you want to make a positive impact, which I'm guessing you didn't get into this profession to get rich.
Nope. Sure didn't.
Right, because it ain't gonna happen, right?
Nope.
Okay, but you can save some lives.
Yeah.
And so this is what I want you to think about when you're like, oh, but I don't, or I don't. And whenever those things happen, how many people are gonna die because you didn't? Think about that. Are you good at what you do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you make a difference?
Yeah.
Then look at it. You have two ways of looking at it. How many are going to die or how many are you going to save? You could pick the poison, but every time you're like, oh crap, I don't want to send another cold freaking email. I don't want to tweet this person. Be like, they have a platform of 3 million. I bet at least 5 of them are in a crisis situation right now.
Yeah.
You know, that's the importance of your message. And that completely blows out of the water any kind of, but I don't know. Like, I mean, think about your concerns right now. Are they important?
Compared
Well, I
to
mean,
what?
if they are, tell me and I'll bulldoze those too. But like, you know, come on now.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think my biggest, one of the most important things for me though, is that if we're going to be everywhere and trying to talk to everybody, and maybe this is part of the imposter syndrome piece, I want to have something valuable to give them. There's a million people out there talking about mental health right now, maybe all from slightly different angles, or you know, how to get through. Everybody's, even non-mental health people, are talking about how to survive COVID, which is good. Everybody needs to be talking about this. It's definitely not a competition, but I don't want to, like, there's a lot of noise, right? So I don't want to be out there in front of everybody and just adding to the noise. I need to make sure whatever it is that I'm offering them is really valuable. And that to me is sort of the pivot, because that's not what we were talking about when we started our business. We knew what we were going to offer people, and we knew that that was valuable, and now we don't have that right now. So that to me is part of the pivot, is figuring out what is it that is going to be valuable, that's not extra noise, that, you know, also lends to our credibility.
Right. Interesting. All right. So how long do you think it's going to take you to write that book? If you catch the humor in that one. Do you think value is educating people on potential warning signs?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Let's practice. Give me 3.
So anytime somebody's really like changed from their normal state, so any changes in like withdrawing from people, but our challenge is everybody's withdrawing from people. I think that's going to be the challenge, is what do those signs look like in this world of social distancing, or at least physical distancing? Like, I kind of want to make that switch too, because we want to stay connected.
Right. So now you just made that switch. Give me 3 using that switch.
People talking in a way that is sort of like a little bit hopeless. If you don't hear hope for a positive future in people, like, it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to not know what the heck is going to happen. But if you don't hear hope in sort of the way people talk about the future, then that could be a potential sign. Especially if their original, like their normal, is hopeful or whatever. That makes sense.
Give me another one.
Well, we know there's a lot of different people who are already a little bit more at risk because they're socially isolated. So if you have folks becoming even more socially isolated because of this, who fall in some of those higher risk groups, I'd maybe be concerned about. I'd want to know at least what those are.
All right, give me another one.
if they've experienced any sort of loss, which is what everybody is experiencing right now. So any sort of loss financially, I lost my job. I mean, all of those things could potentially be like a precipitating event. So if those have happened and people are showing some other concerning either ways of communicating or concerning behaviors, increased alcohol use and drug use, if that's not their norm, I mean, certainly you don't want that anyways, but like if they aren't a person who has a glass of wine every night and now they are, COVID, I mean, there are some things that you have to sift through to figure out, is that a real warning sign?
So I just kind of let you go and you gave me 4 when I asked for 3. So what's the problem here? Do you think these things would be helpful? Do you think that this is what we call a piggyback in like the media world, is where you take, okay, here's what I talk about normally, and you layer it on top of the current events or something in the store or something going on in the news.
Yeah.
That's all that is. And that works in podcasts, that works in every kind of broadcast media, you name it. And you just did it. All you have to do now is write them down as talking points.
I love it.
And you're done. Like, you just did the thing. Like, there is no, this is one of the things where the impression that I've kind of gotten is maybe a sensation that I'm kind of getting, that you think there's a distance between the thought and then the finishing of the thing. You know, it's like we're looking at less than a 1 hour. I call them like 3-minute problems sometimes. It's like, okay, we just had ourselves a 3-minute problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all it is. It doesn't, you need to sort of remove yourself from the belief that giving time to this is somehow going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to make it way worse.
Agree.
You know, so the hesitation, so maybe a skill that I would personally work on in your situation is kicking my butt. You know, it's like, wait a minute, I gotta no, we gotta go. And just let that first thought be that first thought, because you know your stuff. You've been doing it a while, you're trained. You talk, I'm assuming you talk about this to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't take you long to make that little COVID adjustment on those things, and you even gave me an extra one. You know, so it's like, oh, okay, like, is this making a little bit more sense? Like,
yeah.
this is your business, right? Like, this stuff, this info, the ability to get it out there, to have that conversation. And what you really want to be doing is, if you're going to partner with people and you want to partner with these organizations, you want to elevate essentially your street cred. Mm-hmm. Because if you're able to show, oh, look, I've been on these media outlets, I've been on these podcasts, you know, here's the platform kind of thing, people are going to start coming to you. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to reverse this whole flow of, I don't know what to say, to, I got way too much to say, but because it's a muscle. All of this, like the getting through the imposter. Here's the thing about imposter syndrome. You're never going to overcome it, mm-hmm. but you can outrun it. It's the same thing with editing. You ever typing and it's like, oh, that sentence sucks, and you hit the backspace and you're like, ah, crap. You know, this is one thing I've learned from working with over 16,000 authors, is that you'll never beat it. Like, the inner critic, that's essentially another version of imposter syndrome. You'll never beat it, but you can absolutely outrun this thing. And it works in typing. It works in putting out content. You know, like, the minute you were like, okay, fine, I'll do it, I was like, schedule. Like, I'm not going to wait. I'm an introvert. You think I like doing this? No, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for the good of humanity. You know, it's like, you're going to be like, you are going to absolutely shred this. And I'm excited to watch you do it. But I need to whatever the thing that you do with your face, where I see you pausing, stopping. What did they say, that in Iron Man or something? When they're getting blown up by that one dude, he's like, stopping, and like explosions everywhere. Like, that's right now. Stopping.
I have a smile on my face. I'm excited about it.
Excellent. In that case, let's flip this thing around. I want you to tell me what you're going to do next. Give me like your first 3 action steps.
Well, I need to have a phone call with my partner. I'm going to tell her to watch this live once I'm
That's fair.
later. I'm going to go back through it and take notes because you said bring your notebook, but I can't sit here and write my notes while I'm chatting with you. So I'm going to take notes, and then I'm going to get our social. I'm going to work with her to get our social up and running. And we'll start trying to brainstorm. I think you called them verticals. I'm not a business person. I don't know those words. Start brainstorming what our different verticals are and trying to hone in on a message, a particular message for each.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I love it. And then I'm
going to reach out to 400 people a day. I don't know where I'm going to find them, but that's what I'll do.
There you go. All right. So I'll help you with that, because I don't like any sort of gap when one is jumping. Like, let's just walk through the plains. Let's eliminate the earthquake craters. The places where you're going to find these folks, obviously podcasts, you want to start with going to Google. I mean, everybody's going to have a different thing, but you say Google, industry keyword podcasts, that kind of thing. And then the information that you're going to want, because you're going to watch this later, you want, the podcast name, who's the show host. Most of them have some sort of something where it's like, if you'd like to be a guest kind of thing. And so get their contact, or you can check their About Us page or their legal agreements. They typically are required to have some sort of contact info in there and put that into a sheet. Now, here's a big hack, if you can call it that. Go on Upwork. After you've done this, after you've figured it out and you've done all this research, create a video of it. There's something called Jing by a company called TechSmith. It's free, and you can make a 5-minute video. It's a screen capture. So what you want to do is write out the steps that you're going to take, and then do a screen capture of you proficiently doing the action. Okay. This is called a standard operating procedure. And then you're going to go pay someone for like $3 to $5 an hour to do this for you.
Okay.
That making sense?
A little bit.
Here's why. You have way bigger fish to fry than building spreadsheets.
I'm good at spreadsheets.
Well, that's nice then. Use your skills for now. That's fine. But if you want to grow, there are certain aspects of this that you want to get out of the way of. And the first one is going to be building that target list of the people that you can go to. Because remember, it's podcasts, it's YouTube. You're going to want, you want to start actually with your local media outlets.
Yeah.
Because they will take you in a heartbeat.
Right.
Definitely over webcam. So yeah, start with the local media outlets and kind of get your feet wet with that. But just make this spreadsheet. Try to get as many as you possibly can.
Yeah.
With this kind of stuff. And so the next piece that you want to outsource is the reach out to these people. So it's the building of the sheets that learn it, understand it, know when somebody's screwing it up so that you can adjust, but then get that off your plate as fast as possible. Then start doing the reach out. Because remember, this is a numbers game. Because my favorite phrase, you're going to get the finger more times than you get the thumb.
Yeah, right.
You're new. Nobody knows who you are. This is sales. All right. This is a numbers game. It doesn't matter if there's no money involved. They're not buying anything. It's still, and I brought this up last night very briefly, everything is a transaction. Whether or not it's financial is irrelevant. So you want to go to market expecting, most people are going to tell me no. So you start small, grow it. And the minute you get your first yes, boom, you're off to the races. Because what ends up happening is that ratio of fingers to thumbs flips.
Right.
It's going to take a little while. So expect that. So there you go. The target lists by industry. Every industry gets its own sheet, and each what would we call the media outlet gets their own tab. Meaning we're going to have YouTube, podcasts, Stitcher Radio. By the way, great place, awesome search engine. You can look through that. Yeah, and then your media pitch.
Okay.
What's in it for their audience? And you want to make it where it's very easy to adjust that. It needs to be an editable template that is personalizable to the person you're going after. But this is one of those things that if you do this consistently, I can see you showing up in someplace like Forbes, Business Insider, all the big publications within maybe 6 weeks or less. But you need to be able to communicate what?
I just I don't know. That's so much. That's just so much bigger than what we were thinking. And I think you make really good points. I think it's possible. It's just such a change from our original approach.
Can I float you another idea?
Sure.
It's not only possible, it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get into this to save one person and be done with it and be like, all right, we're out of here. Job done. Why'd you get into this?
To make systematic changes that people don't end up having these issues in the first place, and to support folks who are struggling.
Right. But more than one, right?
Yes. Population health.
Ooh. Why not talk to the population then? This is how it happens. This is how you do it. Like, this is a specific roadmap to global domination. Like, that's what this is. But it works. And I mean, especially with what you're doing. And I mean, we've gone very specifically into this, but I could see where you've kind of like run into a couple of roadblocks with this. It's like, oh, I see. All right. Maybe, you were thinking kind of small. Yes. But your heart was big, but your thoughts were small. And so let's make the thoughts bigger, and then it'll tow your heart into larger things, and maybe you'll go global. I don't know. Who cares? But right now, just focus on, the first 10 million, right?
10 million.
Oh, whatever. You get, 6, 10 million, tomato, as they say.
Yeah.
But I really, really, really like you of all the people who reached out, and there were a couple few. But that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, is because what you're doing, especially right now, I mean, in all things, preventing the violence and the suicide and all this. And I like how you're talking about, making that systemic change. Are you going to do that with a small platform?
Mm-hmm.
No, not really. I mean, it's like, little bitty mouse. Like, and this is the problem where people are like, well, money is evil. It's like, well, no, it's not. It's fuel. If you have a ton of money, you can do epic good with it. That kind of stuff. So it's one of those things where if you have a platform, you can wield that for the betterment of society. Because think about this, like, if you're like, okay, we have this problem here, and you are actively communicating with, say, like 3 million people, and you say, hey, we need to make some change. Take this one specific action, if you don't mind, here. Where it's like, if you want to pressure, say, like a politician, get everyone to email like the dirty pictures. Just kidding. But like, you know what I mean? You could put pressure in a good way on folks, on institutions. The larger and the more engaged your platform is, and this is your moment to build that. Nothing else really matters. Like, build that platform, communicate all the goodwill, and get out there and do it. And it starts by, like, you gave me the list of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Build the list, engage the platform. And the more you do it, and here's a deliverable for you. So you had said earlier that you did not want to just contribute to the noise. You wanted to have something of value to offer. So as you're driving more people to this, you're building that email list, you're getting them to join these groups, you're having them follow you on different social kinds of situations. What you're going to be able to do as you grow is, well, enormous, but I'll give you 2 very specific things. Number one, if you want to deliver value that is unique and fun and interesting and not like the other noise, you can show up, be yourself, and just have conversations with people, like on a video thing like this. Invite people in to talk, or whatever it is, whatever they want to do. The other thing is, as you grow, you're going to attain something of a celebrity status in this kind of thing. Like, people are going to know who you are. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get TikTok famous. I mean, that's like, whoo. But this is one of those situations where as you grow that platform, you're going to be able to reach out to more and more people. Why don't you go get authors, celebrities, business leaders in there to talk about, bring in people that society kind of looks up to, maybe, and have them kind of get vulnerable, because they will. they'll be very open to talking about that, you know? And, you know, you can get more and more A-listers the bigger you grow. And I think if people start to hear the stories from people, they're like, what? You know, so you look at like celebrities and drug abuse and suicide and things like that. That's a thing. You know, that's a kind of our being in the spotlight. It's kind of a hard life. Talk about it, you know, humanize them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a stunning value to your audience. You can bring people in from the other institutions, have a conversation about that. You know, so remember, you have two audiences. You have the people that need to know because they're all in lockdown with everybody else. And then you have the industry professionals. So maybe just create two little paths.
Yeah.
And then when you have the industry professionals, you can use that to be able to, you know, do events or whatever, or some big live thing on this or whatever. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Like these are what I call minimum movement, maximum impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and all it takes is, I mean, a lot of work. You know,
Not afraid of hard work. Wouldn't be here otherwise.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, you're clearly not doing it for the money. You're not doing it for, it doesn't even sound like you're doing it for you. You're doing it for like, you know, this is something that you're passionate about and you're driven to.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. All right. Questions for me.
I don't know. I feel like you've laid out a pretty straightforward path of actionable items. Maybe here's one that's like more specific to list building, because this is a rabbit hole that my partner and I have been going down a little bit, is like,
Yeah, isn't it though?
It is, around like CRMs and how best to leverage that, or which one to pick.
I got you. Here, I'll help. Deliverability is a massive issue with most of them. For whatever reason, most companies just haven't gotten their crap together. Use MailChimp with HubSpot. That's going to save you money and give you the best deliverability out there. Amusingly enough, once you've built up a bit of a platform, MailChimp might actually become another launchpad for you, because they could probably make you one of their interviews. You know, kind of thing. Because they do a lot of that stuff where they'll feature people and they'll kind of sort of like, hey, look who's using our platform. By the way, suicide prevention, you know, that sort of thing. And so your life is very much going to become, how do we balance making everyone else look good in a professional way while still trying to deliver your message? And that's just what it is. And then since you watched my other, the call that I did like this, you want to bring everybody back into your ecosystem. And follow them around like lost puppies, like we talked about last night. Right?
Yes.
It's a big deal. It's especially important with you because of what you do and how impactful it can be on the world. Yes. So did that answer the CRM question? I mean, that was a pretty easy one. I was expecting you to nail me with something. I'm like, oh, I could sleep through that one. Come on.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. My partner and I have been just sort of plugging away at all the different aspects of trying to get a business up and running. And with no background in business and finance, you know, I feel like have done a pretty damn good job.
You have.
With the limited sort of, I don't know, with little money too. I mean, we really, that's the other thing with having lost our opportunity for some trainings, is we are really trying to just put our own money in right now. And we were really hopeful to take one of our first couple trainings, all of the money to put that sort of like, that is our starting capital. So that's maybe a piece where we're having to sort of shift how we get some of that starting capital. Cause you know, we're not eligible for any of the new COVID relief things. I've very thoroughly looked into that and spoken with some professionals through the SBA. We're too young, we're too new, we don't have revenue to speak of, so we can't really show how COVID has impacted our business. So yeah, just having to think a little bit more creatively about how to maybe kickstart getting a few dollars to be able to do some of that more broader reach will be.
But you don't need that money. No, hold up there. Everything I laid out, if this costs you more than $200, I will literally freak out.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
no, it's like I understand where you're coming from financially. Like that's what buy my stuff. Like that, I know that's not the point of this.
Yeah.
Like the point of this is to be able to say, okay, I understand you're new. You're probably not like flush with cash. Totally cool. All right. What you want to do then is, MailChimp is cheap. It's free up to your first 2,000. HubSpot is also free up until the point where you upgrade.
Right.
Your web hosting, that kind of stuff. It is what it is. You're going to do what you're going to do. You don't need to start the retargeting now that we talked about last night, but you want to be building your audiences. So you want to make sure that you have your pixels hooked up. They're free.
What's pixels mean? I don't even know what.
Well, I'm not going to dive into that because that's a big old rabbit hole. If you want to talk, you can go to YouTube. How do I install my Facebook Pixel 2020? Okay. There's a billion things. Like, remember, if you have a question, YouTube it. Like, there's thousands of people that can walk you through that in all sorts of voices and fun things. But you want to be building that invisible audience constantly. So make sure that's on all your pages. Put your little cookie disclosure, whatever you need. That's it. And for now, your big power punch is you're going to be throwing everything into social, but you're going to use your list to promote it until you figure out funding, whether that's a Kickstarter, whether you sell a book, whether you do whatever. That's your call. You can also get donations, like check with PayPal about that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But you need to prove out your model,
Right.
And the big thing is, remember, you're going to suck at this until you get good at it. So just let the world see you suck. That's a huge hurdle. I'm sorry to have to tell you that. That's
okay.
It's like everyone watching you when you're a little kid, like learn how to ride a bike and fall on your face, but everybody's there.
I like it.
To make you feel better, like I've been doing these things for years. And because of this, like my 5-year-old daughter, I was in the middle of this thing, trying to stream on Twitter, and she's totally coming in here yelling about how her sister is not giving her a Barbie. That's live. I didn't delete it. It's there.
Yeah.
So
that's what we're working with. We all have to be a little more flexible, and it is what it is. Expectations need to come down just a little bit. We need to be a little bit less hard on ourselves about, what we can accomplish right now, and we'll get there. There's my hope for you. That's my hopeful message.
Everybody chill. We're all in this together. And like we talked about last night, you have the power in your pants. Wait, that came out totally wrong. No, it's like you have it in your purse or your pants. It's like whatever that is. It's like the cell phone.
Your phone, okay.
That's it. Oh, you didn't know what I meant? Come on. I went through that whole thing last night. Yeah, that's it. It's like we all have these cell phones, and typically smartphones, especially the latest iPhone edition. I think the latest 2 generations are so stunningly good. Like, why would you buy anything else? Like, you don't need money for this. You need execution, like daily execution. What is your daily content? LinkedIn for the professionals. It's organic. Like, your reach on that is going to be huge. Like, you can go in there and talk to groups. You can do live things. I did a live interview the other day with that stuff. Like, it's huge. You can totally get in there and do it. I build your platform, engage your platform, bring external traffic into that. And then once you have some money, run those $1 a day, like content things.
Yeah.
And people will donate. When you get out there, it's going to start, like I showed you what happened when I started doing these things. People just come out of the woodwork. Hey, I really like that. Can I do something? Like, what can we do here? And especially in your situation, people will pop out literally to go, oh, this is cool. How can I help you?
Yeah, and we've seen some of that locally. We've got a couple of colleagues who are, interested in helping with community events, doing some of the back end work on finding contacts for us. So we're really fortunate that this is an issue that people they care about.
There you go. Well, in that case, why don't you ask some of them if they'll help you build your list?
I will. I did. I already am.
There you go. See, I like this.
On it.
All right. Like, I want an honest thing here. Like, do you feel like this is something that you can do?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if your partner has any questions, you know where I am.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Cool. All right. So I'm going to let this live out there in the social medias.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So this was helpful.
Yes. Thank you very
All right.
much.
I expect to turn on my TV and see you in about 2 weeks.
Got it.
All right. Excellent. Cool. All right. Well, hey, everybody who watches this thing live or replay, whatevs, thank you for coming. If you want to do this, message the page. Shell, thank you. This was, I really, really hope this helps because what you're doing is vital.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Johnny.
All right. You have yourself a good one. We'll chat soon.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.